Lost Art with Andrew Cox, retired Master Gunnery Sergeant. thelostart.podbean.com. Get some merchandise and help support the podcast in getting our veteran voices out for all to hear. Now on all major podcast platforms. Be sure to like, share, and subscribe. Be a guest, tell your veteran story, discuss your veteran business or organization. Email The Lost Art with Andrew Cox at gmail.com. Andrew Cox, a Till Valhalla Project Ambassador. See the project story at tillvalhallaproject.com. Thanks for tuning in. Please enjoy the podcast that's giving a voice to our veterans. The Lost Art with Andrew Cox.
Hello, my friends, and welcome back to the Lost Art Podcast. That podcast giving a voice to our veterans. I'm your host, Andrew Cox, and today we're going to have a part 2 of a My Veteran Story with Ulrik. But before we get into that, are you enjoying the podcast? And make sure you go to our website. That's thelostart.podbean.com. Go check it out. See what's going on. There is that merchandise tab. You can click on that. Go in there, get you a hat, get you a shirt, get you a mug, get you something cool. Help support us in getting our veteran voices out for all to hear. Also, want to give a shout out to the Till Valhalla Project for allowing me to be an ambassador for that great organization. If you don't know anything about them, go to tillvalhallaproject.com. Go check them out. And if there's any way you can help them out in their mission, please do so. All right, we got Ulrik. We're here for part 2. We left off. You just become an American citizen. So now it's off to bigger and better things. Now you can actually go, now that you're a citizen, and become a part of the MARSOC community. So let's continue on with the story.
Yeah. Thanks, Andrew. I appreciate that. By the way, do you have stickers? Because I'm a big fan of stickers.
Are you kidding me? Of course I got.
You got stickers? All right, cool. Yeah. I just didn't hear that mentioned, so I just want to make sure you have stickers. I need to get a sticker before I leave, so I can put that on my mug too.
Yeah, absolutely.
All right. So now it's finally come together, right? I want to repay my debt of gratitude. I want to go get into special operations, and the Marine Corps, wound up being my most expedient trajectory into this endeavor. And so I'm a citizen. We've had bacon pancakes, and by the seat of my pants, I got to become a citizen on the USS Midway with a big to do. And I go back to the recruiting office there, and I tell Scott, hey, dude, we're in, we're signing it up. Now, what has happened in the background at that time is the Marine Special Operations Command has been granted an MOS, a military occupation specialty. And so now it's moving from being a billet to being an MOS. And what goes along with the MOS is you get continuity of the Marines that you train. So from a return on investment standpoint for the commanding general of MARSOC, that makes total sense, right? You train these guys, you get them over on a billet, you only have them for 6 or 7 years, and then you got to return them back to the greater Marine Corps. That's the current arrangement. But for me, what that meant was that was a great current arrangement, because I get to go over on a billet, and the monitor doesn't have to worry about losing my military skill, because on paper they're going to get it back.
Yeah.
Well, that's changed now. I'm a citizen, and I've signed up my paperwork to go to selection. And that still stands. That's grandfathered in. Scott Day, I don't know how he did it, but he made that happen.
Mm-hmm.
I'm able to go to selection in January of 2012. And I go through selection, and here's just like the John Geary story that I hear it after the fact, like yesterday.
Yeah.
I recently heard a story while I was an instructor over at the Raider Training Center from a fellow instructor over there. And he's like, we were having some conversations, and he asked me, you don't remember me, do you? And I'm like, no, dude, I don't. We're seeing eye to eye on a bunch of stuff and whatnot. Yeah. And he's a fellow husband, father, and Christian.
Yeah.
And he just went to a Christian convention with speakers there. I think Tim Tebow was there and stuff like that.
Okay.
And so we're talking about that. And he told me, hey man, you don't remember me, do you? We were in selection together. Right.
Oh, wow.
And no, I don't, because again, I was in selection. I was split between these two differing factors, being split into, one was that laser beam focus. I got to perform. I got to freaking do this. I got to do it. There's so much intensity and forward momentum. And then there's still my vices. Like I'm still a drunk on the weekend, and like on the weekdays too. I'm so high performing that I have access to go out and party. And there's a couple other like really, really high performing dudes that were also rambunctious from the Force Recon community, as you can imagine, right? So these dudes were also like, we would go out on the weekends and sometimes on the weekdays, and we would just like burn it down.
Yeah.
And then we come back in and like, oh, there's a 8 mile hike or something like that for time, you gotta, and we would just crush those things. But my buddy Adam, who I'm talking to at the schoolhouse, he says, yeah, man, himself and a couple of guys, they were like, man, they didn't trust, they didn't believe who I was. Because here's this guy Ulrik, and he's a little bit older, and he says he's in the band. But he is like, clearly he's not struggling with any of this stuff.
Yeah.
And he says he's from Denmark, and like there's just a lot of things that aren't adding up. So there's like a lot of skepticism about this guy, and him and a couple other dudes that are in selection with me are like, they've kind of agreed like this guy isn't here for selection, he's here to audit the course, he's here like as an insider, some way or another. Like he's not really here as a fellow candidate. He's here for something else. And he's telling me this. I'm like, man, that's wild. Like you guys thought that. And looking back on it, I guess I can kind of see that, because I don't know. I don't know. Like it didn't. Anyways, for the guys that are participating, it didn't add up. That here's this guy out of the band that's like just murdering it. But I had just spent my time like murdering it, like crushing myself, crushing other musicians, and going, not half-assing anything, but going in full sail. And just going like as hard as I possibly could on the things that I did, and including going out and partying and burning it down. And
of course,
that's just how it was for me. But we went, it was broken up into two parts. There was a preparatory, and then there was the actual selection. The preparatory took place over the course of 3 weeks, and it was because the MARSOC selection cadre had turned a lot of people away, because people come back from their deployments and whatnot and then get thrown into a pool. So like there's not a lot of pools forward in Afghanistan, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
So guys were like failing on things that, if you just gave them some time in the pool, like they would be able to do it. So there was, hazing sessions in the pool. And there was there's just a lot of like progressively overload hiking and just a lot of PT. And so we participated in that, and that was here in Sneads Ferry.
Okay.
So just south of Camp Lejeune in Jacksonville. And we'd do that. We'd go out and party, and just had a great old time. I made some lifelong friends there. My good friend Tim Cunningham, who's from Force Recon and hard partying ilk, and my good friend Troy Johnson, who's no longer with us, and my friend Noah Phillips and Steve Bush. And they were all, with the exception of Steve Bush, out of like a close-knit recon community. Steve Bush was a Hearst master, and he, taught people how to do ropes, and come out of helicopters on ropes and stuff like that, and climb in mountains, whatever else. And I got real close with him because he knew knots. Like he knew how to tie knots. He was captain tying knots, right? He knew how to do that back of his hand. And that was a lore of and information that I needed. So like we were close, but he was also a great guy, just really, really sweetheart of a man, beast of a man. And I was really close with these guys. And we would just tear it up, and didn't have a lot of trouble with it. And one thing that I found out to be like really cool about the guys out of the recon community was that there was an appreciation for the arts, if you will.
Oh, okay.
Like there was this like they liked rock and roll, like kind of like that, ridiculous portrayal in Heartbreak Bridge, the rock and roll of or the Ayatollah of rock and roll, whatever. But there's like this, they were appreciative of surfing, of Hollywood, of music, of the fact that I was from Denmark. I forgot my buddy Seth James. He was also in like that recon community, like totally close knit, cool dudes, really cool dudes. Like to surf, like to skateboard, like punk rock, just a lot, like a lot of things. There were cultural and countercultural and everything. And so of course we had stuff to talk about because I was from Denmark.
Yeah.
Legitimately so. It wasn't a ploy, or anything like that. But legitimately, a foreigner doing this thing. And I'm also a guitarist extraordinaire, if you will. And we did go and crash a couple of like open mics.
Nice.
And no, it wasn't actually open mics. We went and crashed. This one guy had a gig over at Rick's, the restaurant.
Okay.
And this other couple of dudes had a gig somewhere else down on Topsail Island. And myself and my buddy Tim, we just crashed those gigs and like pretty much did a hostile takeover of their instruments and everything else, and just belted out some songs and stuff like
Very
that.
nice.
It was super fun. We had a great time, and we're kind of borderline casual about the whole process of selection. Like I said, it was in two parts. So one part was there, and then another part they take you to a different location where you're isolated entirely. No phones, no weekend time or anything like that. You just go through like hard assessment. A lot of it's land navigation. That's no secret because that's what it is in special operations. Because you have to operate on your own. You have to show that you can do things without being scared to do them on your own, and you can operate well without like somebody constantly there to give you orders and instruction. Right. Which again, like, yeah. I can do that. Like that sounds great. And I loved it, man. I loved it. I would routinely finish pretty early on my routes, and then I would just make mission, go fishing. I'd just kick back and relax, dry out my stuff that was soaked in sweat, put it in a patch of sun, grab a couple of Z's, snooze a little bit, and wait for guys to come pick me up after land nav courses. And I had such a good time. I promise you that I had a blast of a time. I was singing songs to myself. I remember vividly, I ran into my buddy, Noah Phillips. We were both out. We'd found out like the trick to it. And I'm not going to share the trick to it, but we both found out the trick. And we were just cruising, man. We were making time like nobody's business. And I heard him singing. I was like, yeah, dude, like that's what I'm talking about. Like he was just, like quietly singing to himself as he's running through the woods, full battle royale, like heavy load, running through misery, like we're covering some serious miles out in, all the kind of wait a minute vines that are out there. And the terrain out here, which I will say too, the terrain that we train in here in North Carolina with all the vines and everything else that's out here and the mosquitoes, bugs, the constant swamp, right? Everything that's out here having been deployed to austere regions, not the vacation regions in Southeast Asia, to austere regions in Southeast Asia, like we are well equipped and trained to operate in any environment. Absolutely, hands down. Having spent time out in 29 Palms, like I can walk through Iraq, no problem. Like that, we have some of the best training environments, and it's because the Marine Corps is hard-nosed, like deep dive into misery.
Yeah.
And just like
very proficient at finding the worst places to train.
Hands down. Hands down. So that's not to say it wasn't grueling and there was, but I loved every second of it, man. I had such a good time with it. After selection, you look at your name up on the board, you get no instruction. Like just take your instruction from the whiteboard. The cadre is instructed. Like the only responses they're allowed to give you, because they can't give you any answers, they can say, what were your instructions? Continue to train. That's it.
Wow.
That's it. That's the script. That's what you're allowed to say as a selection instructor. There might be other stuff. I was never a selection instructor per se, but that was the only thing that I ever got out of those. It's like, what were your instructions? They're all posted on the whiteboard. What were your instructions, candidate?
Wow.
And continue to train.
Yeah.
Like, because the only other thing that can happen is you can request to drop. You can drop on request, DOR.
Yeah.
You can either say DOR, you can start spelling, you can say drop on request, you can just sit your butt down, crack your chem light. Then they can start talking to you.
Say I'm done.
Yeah, exactly. And then they can start talking to you like a human being. But until then, like nothing, no facial expression, nothing whatsoever. And that's it, man. So yeah, just I had a blast with that. Loved it. Loved every second of it. Good time. It's grueling. It was fun. But anyway, so there's your, on the whiteboard at the end of it, there's your names, and there's 3 columns. Now I look for my name, and I see my name in the same column as some of the guys that I know. I just know without a shadow of a doubt these guys are making it. So I'm like, cool, awesome. We get sent home early. fantastic, great.
Yeah.
And then we have like an extra week to burn while the other guys are going up on board because they have to get reviewed and everything else.
Right.
And they're still at the selection location. Meanwhile, we're in an empty squad bay down in Stone Bay in Sneed's Ferry. And one of the guys, Maxwell, I forget what his first name is, but Kevin Maxwell, he's got a rental car. So he's a staff sergeant. That's why. He's a staff sergeant. He's on TAD orders there. He's got a rental car. He's got a freaking a Dodge Neon. Just a tiny little thing, right? Tiny little thing. But he's got a Dodge Neon. He's the only guy that has a car. So we befriend him, right? And now we're friends with a bulk fueler. And we become friends with him. And then all we got to do is text in accountability.
Yeah.
And then we just burn it down.
Yeah.
Like for a week, we're just going bananas, man. And we pile. Remember how I told you, like, I was $150 soaking wet. College, I made it up to 160. My goal at the schoolhouse was to make it to the limit for my height standard, which is 186 pounds. And then before going to selection, I wanted to be 200 pounds. You got to be two something to do something.
Yeah.
So
I like that.
I got it. I had to make it to 200 pounds. And so anyway, so there's, we were 5 guys piling into that Dodge Neon.
I'm surprised you can fit 5 people in it.
But hardly.
Yeah.
And we just went everywhere in North Carolina. And you know the place. Like there's J. Actionville, Wilmington. Like we went everywhere that you possibly go, and we just burnt it down. And then it was a hoot and a holler, man. And then we went to our graduation ceremony. We came in late.
For the graduation?
Yes.
Very nice.
We came in as the general of MARSOC was walking out. The general and sergeant major of MARSOC was walking out. And oh man, this again, self-incriminating as all get out. But my boy Troy, and I mentioned him because he's dearly departed. I love him. My boy Troy is freaking madman. He's a wild animal. And he's got those stupid flip-up shades from the 90s. And he's driving the car, and we're blasting like LMFAO Party Every Night or something stupid like that, loud, rolling up onto the compound, the MARSOC compound, and then jumping into our uniforms, barely a shave, and coming in smelling like reeking to high heaven, going into the graduation ceremony. And like that's all to paint the picture that, one, I was with kindred spirits.
Mm-hmm.
A contingent of them anyways, and 2, like my vices still were like there was still there was so much energy and hard momentum and violence in my heart and in my body and everything like that didn't have a proper outlet, and all these things were still very much a part of my life,
right?
And on the kindred spirit part, like these guys are still my friends to this day, with the exception of several guys lost now, but and I'm glad that you made like that talk about the veteran suicide, checking in with your friends and everything like that, because that's absolutely it's I cannot tell you the amount of times now that I have heard somebody say, or I found myself weeping alone in my bed asking why. Like, or just not seeing it coming, or whatever it is, like what, like just in disbelief. And the antidote to that is just reach out.
Mm-hmm.
Like you're not gonna. This whole idea of like, looking for tells or tales or anything. Like, no, dude, no, not at all, because you don't see it coming. That's the whole thing. Yeah. That's the whole thing. Absolutely. It's like you don't see that stuff coming at all. So, regardless of whether or not a guy is going to be the dude that offs himself or dies tragically, it doesn't matter.
Yeah,
like just reach out to dudes and make that a habit. And they might live to be 100 years, or they might die tomorrow. And that's kind of like the secret to the whole thing of life, right? Is that tomorrow's not promised to anybody, right? We're but a vapor. And so what do we do with the time that we're given? We check in with our buddies, and you kind of do a buddy check, right? In the night, like, hey, like where you at? Because if I buddy checked that guy that was standing on the podium, like he wouldn't have gotten Spartan kicked across the room.
Yeah, that's right.
But so we do that. We do this check-in thing whatnot. But yeah, I just wanted to highlight that we don't know when the guys go. I found kindred spirits within that same community all throughout going through the selection, to the point where like people didn't believe that I was who I was, and those things were still very much part of my life, what was kind of hemming me up, I guess.
Yeah.
But I knew I needed the structure. I knew I needed something to fill that void. I needed something that had enough weight to drive me forward. And I just knew that God had put on my heart that this was the thing that was going to be it. You know, with much less clarity and resolution. Now, as looking back retroactively, hindsight 2020 and everything like that, I can see it for what it was. But at the time, I just knew enough to know that I had to make myself subservient to what it was I was trying to accomplish. Right. So I leave. I get my orders back to Camp Pendleton. I've got my orders to, get cut orders over to the individual training course, which is the next thing that makes the gives you the MOS, the military occupational skill and proficiency.
So this is the schoolhouse at this point. Yeah.
Yeah. The schoolhouse sends me with orders back over to Pendleton to, sort out my affairs and say my goodbyes and everything like that. So I come back with that. The band officer at the time is not impressed. He very much he was a sax man, played jazz, and so like kind of saw the potential for and wanted to use that for what it was. Wasn't particularly impressed, like I said. Yeah. And Trace was still there, and he knew like this whole time, like from Genesis, like he knew like that. That's never been. He's never wavered. Like he looked at me and he could say, with full integrity, like this guy's never wavered. That's what he was going to do.
Yeah.
And he stood by it. And so, okay, that's where I go back to now. The switcheroo within the Marine Corps. I now, because it's an MOS, I have to fulfill my obligated service time in my occupational field with the band. So I could go to selection at the 2-year mark, but I cannot leave the band field until the 4-year mark, until I have finished my obligation. Yeah, no kidding. Yeah.
Okay. All right.
Regardless, I didn't get a bonus. There was nothing affiliated with it or anything like that. But I do know that my recruiting station got Recruiter of the Year and Recruiting Station of the Year immediately after picking up a collegiate musician for the band program.
Yeah.
So I don't know if that was exactly tethered, but I know that happened. But regardless, I was locked in to the MOS and I couldn't leave. The monitor couldn't release me.
Until you did your 4 years.
Until I did my 4 years with the band. And I told Trace, like kind of in closed door, like, hey, dude, I don't know what to do with myself. Like I thought I'd left all this behind me because, mind you, like being a musician in Texas, my vices were still there with me. Being a musician in the band field, my vices were still there with me. All throughout selection, my vices were still there with me. I was trying to go and do something else. Yeah, I really needed to go and do something else. And I told him, like, this holding pattern thing, that's not going to be good for me. Like I can't do this. I don't know if I can do this. And kind of had a heart-to-heart with him. I continued to serve within the band field. He gave me charge of a small ensemble, and I put together a trio. We did a little recruiting tour up and down the coast, and jazz was engaging enough. Like, so we did a jazz combo, and that was engaging enough to where like it took a lot of my time, but I was still kind of a raging monster on the weekends and stuff like that. And I also got put in charge of a lot of PT, and I went and I PT'd together with Recon was there in Camp Margarita, and they would do an in-doc where you can come try out for Recon. Once a month they would do the in-doc, and I participated in those as much as I could. I'd go and run the Dragon's Back, which for anybody that hasn't been to Camp Pendleton and specifically Camp Margarita, it's a
fun run.
It's an awesome run. It's an absolute excellent scorcher of a run. Fantastic hill ridges up and down. It's the fire break, right? And it's just such a good run. And you can take it the short and stout way, where like you're just going at a insanely steep angle. I don't know what the angle is.
I don't know either.
Like, it seems like it's in excess of 45 degrees, man. Like you're pretty much hands and feet at some points. But yeah, I would do that, and I would just try to PT myself into so that I didn't have things pulling me in the wrong direction.
Yeah.
In that time frame, I also got put up for an individual augmentee billet together with my friend John, and we went to 29 Palms to train together with 7th Marines to go to Camp Dwyer in Afghanistan, which it was going to be a watch. It was the two of us, and we were going to be watched. So like it was 12-hour shifts of like listen to the radio. But we decided to go and celebrate, before going. Decided to go and burn it down in Vegas, and that didn't turn out well.
Yeah.
And I wound up contacting the gunner sergeant that was put in charge of me over the phone while in cuffs from the Metro Police.
Oh God.
And yeah, they went ahead and sent me back to my unit in disgrace. We'd gotten picked up on a jaywalking charge by the Metro Police in Vegas, which I don't remember a lot from the incident, but what I do know from the incident is that I had crossed a crosswalk, and it had turned while I was walking, and somebody was busying themselves with, getting through that intersection. And I was not very appreciative of the fact that they were gunning their car towards me and laying on the horn. So I had some choice words to say to that individual. And then I walked back on the sidewalk. And then the Metro Police came up and wanted to talk to me about that, but I didn't want to talk to them. And then while they were trying to talk to me, my buddy John came up and wanted to kind of like de-escalate the situation. But because he came running up on them while they were talking to me, they didn't see it as de-escalation of the situation. They kind of escalated and pulled out tasers and stuff like that, and arrested us there for jaywalking. Charges got dropped. I got legal representation, everything like that, but we got pulled from the deployment.
Yeah.
And so it is. But there was another thing that like really could have helped push me forward and give me a sense of direction and purpose while I was in this holding pattern. After that, I linked up with the MARSOC West recruiting office, which is located out there in not Las Pulgas, Flores. I think it was in Flores.
Flores, yeah.
Maybe it was Pulgas. No, it wasn't Pulgas actually. Was it? I don't remember now. Yeah. Honestly, I couldn't tell you. But anyway,
a couple of minutes ago.
Yeah.
It's all good.
I linked up with the recruiting command there, and they took me on, sent me to McQuiss, Marine Combat Instructor of Water Survival. And that 3-week course, I took my first crawl stroke again, like just head first into something that, is the unknown. But crawl stroke was the way, because that's how you get out of that. And so I learned it kind of on the job. It was grueling. It's really, really tough. Looking back on it now, having gone to combat dive and having been in the water several iterations since then, by far the hardest thing that I've done in the water was that McQuiss. It was great experience. I got to tan every day. It was in Miramar, right?
Yeah.
It's fantastic.
That's where I did my McQuiss.
Dude, Okay, fantastic. Yeah, so you know the deal. Fantastic location. You get to wear the smallest shorts in the world, tanning ops every day.
Yeah.
And man, you get ripped. Like you get shredded to bits.
I think they try to drown you, is what it feels like most of the time. Yeah. It was mentally speaking, it was one of the toughest courses I'd been through. And I was a decent swimmer, but it was just mentally messed with my head. Like it was cool.
To this day, when I hear the UDT's underwater demolition team shorts, the little metal pieces clinking together, there's a PTSD response for sure. For sure. Like it's not like, drop to the floor and like war response, but there's definite like, sweat, like, okay.
Yeah. Give you that little chill, like, oh God.
Bro, I had to drive down from Pendleton every day. And I picked up another participant in the course on my drive down. And that drive, I'm telling you, man, it was grueling. It was like there was a whole mental gymnastics thing. Like I have a lot of momentum forward, that really drives me, a lot of initiative and everything like that. But that thing, like I really had to buckle down. That was good for me. That was really, really good. I didn't drink not a single day that I was.
Oh, no kidding.
Yeah, not one day.
I mean, it's a good course. It really
great
is.
Course. Yeah. Great course. I quit smoking. Like I really I shaved up, man. Like that's really cool. Got me straight. Loved that. Loved. And that like kind of foreshadowed to my mindset for MARSOC and like where I was going to be at. So with that said, I got to go back to the MARSOC recruiting office, and I got to help them with the kind of pre-screening for selection. And I got to be the dude that hung out, because I then started volunteering my time with San Mateo pools, like every area McQuist,
Mhm.
because I was kind of a free agent in the McQuist realm. I
Right.
went to Camp Horno, I went to San Mateo, I went to Polga's Pool,
Oh, wow.
and I volunteered my time there
Yeah.
in between doing, pre-screening and whatever else, and going out and visiting commands and setting up displays, static displays
Yeah,
and
yeah.
stuff like that. And I got real close with a lot of the guys that ran McQuist for like larger units, and I ran, I don't know how many Marines through water water survival qualification,
Yeah.
to and including like reserve units on the weekends.
Oh, wow.
I did like a stint for JROTC,
Mhm.
brought kids out and stuff like that. Like it was awesome. It was really, really good. That was a great time in my life, and I got to wear the small shorts, and I would swim every day. I would be in great
Yeah.
shape. I tanned. It was fantastic, man. Like I had such a good time. So that really helped me out and filled the void, because I was having a lot of like existential like questions about have I made the right decision? Like
Yeah.
now I'm in a 2-year holding pattern, and seemingly the first thing that I do in my 2-year holding pattern is I get in this stupid altercation with Metro Police out in Vegas,
Mhm.
and I got ruined my chances. It could have been salvaged, but like immediately after, like somebody else gets put on the deployment,
Yeah.
and it wasn't much of a deployment either. But it would have been something. So, anyways, I'm having like a lot of this, like, what am I even doing,
Mhm.
and I start talking with these other service recruiters and stuff like that too, like, see, hey man, can I just jump ship? Like I'm good for it, like I'll come over and I'll do something else. I can't sit here for 2 years. I can't be doing this, man. But I get through that whole, kind of questioning time in my life. I reach back out to Ilya. I start talking with her again. I let her know. I just see like, where she's at, and I express some interest in her.
Yeah.
She assumes that I'm a drunken idiot, which oftentimes I am. But the times that I spoke to her wasn't like in times of like, I never really had much of a tendency to like drunk dial women, and I never
Mhm.
really had much of a tendency to kind of view women in like a game kind of conquest, that sort of thing. That wasn't my thing. I was, in many ways, I've always been like true blue, blue-eyed, blonde-haired, hopelessly naive, romantic.
Yeah.
In that, like anyone that I've ever kind of had this idea of love for, like I've had this idea of like this is it, this is love, this is real. And so I never really did that. Some of my peers did that within both the band field and Marine Corps experience and whatnot, and that just wasn't my bag.
Yeah.
So anyways, I contacted her. She dismissed me, like as she should,
Yeah.
but I managed to endear her a little bit just by being a goofball, and that just modest placeholder for conversation
Mhm.
in passing, in passive. She was stationed at the time in Jacksonville, Florida. I'm stationed in Camp Pendleton, California.
Yeah.
I get my orders for ITC eventually, and I'm like, hey, what's up? She gets orders to go out to Hawaii.
Oh,
so
man.
like we pass each other again. And anyways, I road trip from California out to Camp Lejeune in 2014 in January to go report in for ITC. I road trip once again with my good friend Shay Henley,
Mhm.
and we just have a great time.
Yeah.
Burning it down, on the drive across America. I've got very few like personal possessions at the time, right? I'm a sergeant in the Marine Corps. I'm single. Like I don't have anything at all.
Right.
It all fits
Yeah.
inside of my buddy's Bolo vehicle, Be on the Lookout vehicle. It's a
Yeah.
white Toyota Camry,
Oh, nice.
so it's
Yeah.
exactly what you think of. Like it's like be on the lookout for this nondescript white sedan, and it's just got me and Shay in it, and he had done a recent move with his family from California out to June. Actually, we went to the individual training course together, myself and Josh, and I just drove his other family vehicle out there and sold my Jeep. So, anyways, I drive out there and check into ITC. It's very formal and everything. I wear my uniform and I go through that whole pipeline. And I think it's all out online now too. So it's kind of like a boring story. But it's a very professional course. There were some aspects of it that they were still inventing while I was going through it. But it was very well put together by 2014. I was in the first, so 2014 TAC 1. I go through, Doug Easley's my proctor, and like guys that just make a big impression on me. this is now it's the real deal. Like, so in boot camp, it was Silva, Staff Sergeant Silva. Like, he was the PTSD Marine infantry grunt. He was no 311, Marine rifleman coming back from war. And then it was that guy, the PTSD sergeant in the camp guard, that was like, this is the real deal, you know? And then, like I said, the training cadre at selection, there's no interaction. So they're not even the real deal. Like, you don't know who they are, and you never find out. So that's super awesome, by the way, too. I really like the way that's put together. But the guys that I kind of make friends with there in the recon community, they're also the real deal, you know? And now I'm in ITC, and now I'm like, these guys are it, you know, like these guys are it, man. Like, here we are. And it was a super fun experience. I learned a lot about myself. And I say that because one of the things that the MARSOC community does really well is peer evaluations. So you get evaluated by the guys that you're going through school together with. Now, having been an instructor there later, what is also really, really helpful to know is this guy the same guy whenever there's instructors around as he is when there's no instructors around. Right. You don't get that picture unless the guys, you know, rat each other out, essentially. Right. What I learned about myself is that I was a very different person back then than I am today. And I come across as very, very cold-blooded, cold-hearted, stoic, dispassionate. And it's my European roots. Like, I'm from a cold Northern European country where, like, we only break down those social barriers whenever we're drunk. You know, we sit down for beer and cigarettes, and also, like, a very, you know, I'm from the rural parts of Denmark where it's very it's similar now to the portrayal that you get from rural Canada in the comedy show Letterkenny and Letterkenny Problems. Oh, God. You know how, like, nothing's ever said. They say stuff like, how are you doing? Not so bad. Like, in Denmark, the same thing in, like, the rural areas of Denmark. And it's kind of a rural thing too, I would say, is that you don't go, you know, you're not bubbling with, like, joy or anything like that. How are you doing? Not bad. You know, like you're never good, just not so bad, you know? And it's very, like, I don't know, just kind of casually dismissive, not from a place of, like, menace or anger or hate or anything like that, but just like, we don't need to be overly expressive. You know, it's very, very much like, kind of like that German, you know, ridiculous kind of, you know, there's got to be order to it, but we're not German, we're Danish. So, like, there doesn't have to be order to it. We're drunk. We don't care. So anyways, I learned a lot about myself because I got peered out. Not initially, but after we gotten, you know, rid of some of the people and whatnot, there was a lot of, like, personality things that started to come up, and I was made aware of that, and I had some sit downs with some of my cadre and instructors to kind of, like, help figure some of these things out about myself, you know, because I wasn't performing poorly. I came across as a jerk to a lot of the guys that I didn't necessarily dislike. I was kind of cold and indifferent towards them, which I have a tendency to be. Like, just it's just my natural, you know, that's my natural modus operandi. So I say that to highlight, like, I learned a lot about myself in my peer group because I was around people that had no qualms whatsoever about speaking candidly and frankly, both to your face and putting it on paper too. Like, their word was their bond. You know, there wasn't a lot of, like, shadow realm backstabbery stuff like that going on. It was very much on the table. There was a little bit, of course, it's human nature, right? There was some shadow stuff going on, what have you. But no, it was very, very, very straight up to the point. And again, you know, money talks, sort of thing. Like, you put your money where your mouth is, and here the currency was, you know, effort. You know, like your performance. You're gonna put out, man. I had a great time. I got to.
And how long is that?
That was, at that time, it was 10 months.
Oh, wow.
So it took us from January through October. And
I didn't realize it was that long.
Yeah, it's long.
But you're doing all aspects too, right?
Everything.
You're doing all the water stuff, and then you're doing land stuff.
So the first phase is in processing. It's like PFT, you know, all the stuff. But kind of like for McQuist, right? You put on paper that you can do these things. Cool. Let's verify. Let's verify all this. You know, just like real run of the mill baseline Marine Corps stuff. Like, hey, you said you can run 3 miles this fast. Can you run? All right, put on your shorts. Freaking get out here, 05,
Yeah.
let's go. All that stuff is taken care of. All the stuff that you did while you're in selection, you can do your 10-mile ruck. Cool. Let's do that again. You can do your 500-meter swim, so on and so forth, right?
Yeah.
All that stuff. That's phase 0, right?
Yeah.
You said you were this on paper. Are you this on paper?
Yeah.
Phase 1 is, and it's the second thing, right? Phase 1 is, okay, we need to make, this is a baseline infantry MOS, but we take people from all different walks throughout the Marine Corps, right?
Yeah.
So I was coming from the band, right?
Yeah. You got to put them all on the same.
Exactly.
Make sure they all know
it's a breakneck speed introduction to everything: riflemen, machine gunner, mortars, assaultmen, whatever. Everything that you have inside of the infantry field, to and including like insert, helo insert, and stuff like that. Like everything that you can imagine. That's like baseline infantry stuff.
Yeah.
Smash. We're gonna do it right now, and you better believe it, a lot of time out. Getting real familiar with these wait a minute vines out there in the North Carolina jungle.
Yeah.
Just tons of that. And sleep deprivation, everything else. Like all the good stuff that you can imagine. Just happier than a pig in mud. I remember doing it felt like jungle patrols. Like I grew up, so much of my opinion on the Marine Corps is informed by Vietnam portrayal movies, And I just remember we would get back to the squad bays, and I had the speaker, I had a Bose speaker, and I'd blast music, and it would be a lot of different stuff, but a lot of it would be Vietnam era, Fortunate Son, CCR, or Hendrix, Long Watchtower, stuff like that, right? We'd be blasting that. And that would be in my mind as I was walking through the jungles of North Carolina, and you turn back on patrol, we'd play air guitar on our rifles and stuff like that. But yeah, I'd get through the hard gate. So far as I could tell, the hard gate was getting through the shooting package.
Okay.
That's where people will drop. It's almost like you can either do it or you can't, and we just don't have the time to make a proficient shooter out of you. I've learned since then that there's a lot of things that you can do to become a really good pistol shot, but that's neither here nor there. A lot of guys will drop for the shooting portion, and it's very we, just like anything in the Marine Corps, we shoot above and beyond what you have to, right? We exceed the standard. If the the Special Operations Forces standard for a dive insert capability is 2 miles open surface fin, the Marine Corps Dive School does a 10-miler.
Oh, wow.
Why? Because that's what we do. It's freaking Marine Corps.
Above and beyond.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, better believe it. We're going to be harder than everybody else. We're going to be less funded, less equipped, but just harder than woodpecker lips. We're going to freaking do it. So same thing for the shooting thing. The shooting package at ITC was largely informed by what the Tier 1 guys are doing over at Fort Bragg, now Fort Liberty. So it's similar to that standard of shooting, and our shooting standard is very, very tough. And if you don't make it, you freaking don't make it. That's it, man. That being said, I know a couple of guys that got recycled back to. One guy, dear friend, I'm going to mention him because it's kind of dirty laundry piece, but dear friend, he was a sniper, combat deployed sniper, great shot, right? Fundamentals and everything else, got recycled for pistol shooting.
No
right?
Kidding. Wow.
So I knew in my mind and in my heart that this is a hard gate. I need to make sure that I get past this. Otherwise, everything else that I've done for the last 4 years has kind of been, for nothing, right? I've become an American citizen. I've been doing this Marine Corps thing. I stuck it out for an additional 2 years. Now I'm in ITC going through all the bleeding pain that is. I get through the shooting package. I start talking with Aaliyah. Prior to that, I just hit her up. Okay, it's starting to move. I want to see where she's at. She's out in Hawaii. Dang it. I thought she was in Florida.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. Well, how are you? Just casual talk, because I know I can't lose focus. I can't start looking elsewhere for anything else until I get past this hard gate. Once I'm through that hard gate, smooths out. So I get through the shooting package and I hit her up. I'm like, hey, look, this is the deal. We're going to get married. More or less. That's pretty much it.
Yeah.
There's very, very little back and forth communication.
Yeah.
And she's like, you're an idiot. As she should, So I finished up the shooting package. And I continued to talk with her. And there's time and distance between us. She's stationed out in Hawaii. I'm stationed out in Campbell's Union. And she's got a family vacation. She's going home to see her family in Chicago in Illinois. And I'm like, well, look, I've got a long weekend coming up. I'm just gonna fly up there and get a hotel room, and I'd love to come out and see you. Say hi, put a face to name. Like see if you're the person that I remember you to be, and like match all the stuff that we're writing back and forth. Because now the intensity of that has picked up drastically, right? Because now I'm not. Now I know it's kind of in the bag once you get past the shooting package, right? So I'm like really increasing my efforts there, and she's really dismissing me, like no, like just flat out saying no, like I'm not accepting her rejections. And so I fly out, and I meet her out in Chicago, and we just have conversations about like life values, who I am as a person, and this, that, and the other. And now I have a lot to add validity to, like this is who I am as a person. I have a lot to follow through, like this is what I'm doing and everything else. And I managed, to kind of win her over. I've also received a lot of peer evaluations and started working on my interpersonal, capabilities, going from Ulrik at the schoolhouse, like, we're going to PT here. You're not going to watch a single movie or video game. And like, I'm just here to kill people, to like being a little bit more of a fleshed out human being, because I'm starting to get feedback, like real and honest feedback that, hey, dude, you're kind of a douche. And I'm taking that to heart, because I'm taking it from people that I respect. So anyways, I go out, I see her there in Chicago, continue to write her. And at that time, US SOCOM wide, is super cool. And the US SOCOM commander has said every person under the SOCOM umbrella, whenever the rest of the forces gets a 96, so a 4-day weekend, 96-hour weekend, we get an additional 24 hours. Everybody in SOCOM. So we get 120s. Yeah. So anytime that there was, like, while I was there in ITC, anytime that there was 4-day weekends, I got a 5-day weekend.
Wow.
So what I did is I would jump on a plane and I would red eye out to Hawaii.
Are you serious?
I'm dead serious.
Wow.
I'm dead serious. And my command didn't know. But yeah, I would jump in a plane, and I'd go out and visit with my then to be wife. I was courting her, I wanted to show good faith, and I wanted to show face and everything, like show up for her. And so yeah, I went out there, and let's see, saw her in Chicago. I went out there on a 90 or on a 120 red eye flights, and then back into ITC. By the way, I was still on ITC, which is grueling, like by any stretch of the imagination. Even worse, whenever you're doing that. But I still had a lot of forward momentum. And over the course of several 120s, I'll keep it brief. I courted her. I made another 120 visit out to Chicago to meet with her parents, to make sure that I asked her dad for permission. And then I went out there and I proposed to her on the top of 3 peaks out in Hawaii. On the 3rd peak, I had packed out, some snacks and whatnot. And one of them was a little bag of almonds that, hey, could you hook up, some almonds? And it's like, oh, what's this? Pull out box. Proposed to her there on top of the mountain there. And she said yes. And we go back down, and I think we celebrated, after that hike, we're all sweaty and everything. We celebrated with like a meal at the Whole Foods or something like that.
Nice.
But yeah, so I marry her, and she's out there, and I go through language school, because you have to have a tag on. They just made it so you tag on a language. My designated language was Filipino or Tagalog, because I had requested to go out to California, because that's closer to Hawaii, in case that, we could get co-located, or I just wanted to be closer, right? And then she EAS'd out of the Navy. We co-located out in California. And let's see. So this is like, skipping through a lot of the ITC portion of it, language school. I do want to highlight one thing while in language school, is that I was preparing myself for dive school, because I knew going out to California, like, one of the things that we're going to be covering down on is Southeast Asia, and a lot of that is waterborne. That's where the island hopping campaign for the Marine Corps took place, and kind of where that amphibious assault thing, we really cut our teeth on that as Marine Corps, right? Yeah. And I knew I was going to be a diver, and myself and a good friend, Alan Ingram, we spent a lot of time, every lunch we're in the pool, and every evening we're in the gym. And at that time too, a good friend, Talon, would come up, and he was another guitar player, and he would shred. Like, he wanted to get together and like play guitar. And I was like, dude, I've got this other thing. Like, I'm busying myself with this. Let's kind of tie into this, check in with your buddies. He didn't off himself or anything. He was one of the guys that went down in the Fireball in the KC-130 crash over Mississippi. You never know when guys go,
Yeah.
But yeah, he went down there, and now in my, adult and kind of, post-military reflections, one of the things that I really think about a lot is one that I just kind of wholesale disregarded his interest in like getting together and doing something. Um, and legacy. I would like very much to, whatever it is that I wind up doing as a veteran, that I do it with honor and courage, so that those that have family members that they have lost, but they were inside of this brotherhood, this fraternal brotherhood that we were all in, that they can look and point and say, hey, look at this guy. He's a Marine. Or, hey, look at this guy. He's a Raider. So was my dearly beloved. And they can kind of, you can kind of have a romantic fantasy that if they weren't here, that they would be one of these people, And it goes both ways. Like one of these people could be one of the guys that, are out on the streets or homeless or have, suicidal, tendencies, or have, committed suicide. Or it could be the guys that are out there firing on all cylinders, killing it at whatever it is they're doing. So that, those that have lost them, or the children that never got to know them, that they could look and they could see, like, hey, who's this? And that was, I was in this transition course put together by a nonprofit called the Honor Foundation. Great nonprofit, fantastic. It's geared entirely towards special operations and special operations adjacent veterans that are getting out and transitioning. But that was when they prompted me to reflect on it. Like they really like, dude, you got to think like, what the heck is it that you're going to do? What's going to look like? They prompted me to think on this more intently. And I kind of just resigned myself to the idea that I was just going to join ranks in corporate America, which I might still do. But I was just going to join ranks in corporate America. And then like my hard nose, my forward drive and momentum is going to allow me to make money in corporate America, wearing a suit and going in a cubicle. And that's fine. I'm just going to get compensated better than I get compensated in the Marine Corps. And so what? But that whole thought about like legacy and like, what do you leave behind? And also my like stiff arming of a friend of like what could have been a thing, a memory, like a real thing that we just never, that I never capitalized on. Like he was the open door. He was the hand of opportunity that like, hey dude, let's do this. We could have built, I don't even know what we could have built. It could have been nothing. Could have been the same, drunken escapades that I had with Tim going out and commandeering, music venues and stuff. You never know. And I just, I'm reflecting more deeply over like stuff that you're doing, stuff that nonprofits are doing out there. And also how do I live in a way that kind of, that others can say, hey, whoever it was one of these guys. It's one of those guys. That's why, I love him, because he had that same mindset. If he'd been here today, he would have been doing stuff like that too. He would have been crushing that. He would have been, and we know it to be true. We generally like know it to be true. I really want to like bolster that and kind of add emphasis to that. And those are the things that I'm thinking about in this whole transition thing. I just want to hover there on the schoolhouse, because that's something that I did take away from my time there at the language course, that I just, I was so narrow-mindedly focused on career and success within that realm. And then that came to a grinding halt when I finished dive school, and I was in the Navy parachute course down in Southern California, just on the Mexican border. They tossed us out right on the border. And we had gone through a 7-year drought in California, and then it just opened up and rained torrentially. And what that did was cause a bunch of sinkholes out there. And and we're dumping on DZ Trident. And when you static line jump, you're supposed to do a PLF, parachute landing fall, right? Which is where you feet and knees together and you tumble, right? That's essentially it. You just tumble. And you want to make sure you don't separate your legs or anything like that, because that's when you start to break limbs. And well, I came down, I landed, and just so happened that there's like micro sinkholes all over the DZ. And I wasn't the only guy to sink into some of them. But I was the guy with a full combat load to jump in, and my heel went into one of these sinkholes, and I looked at it afterwards. Like it was a matter of inches, like it was 2 to 3 inches deep. But my heel went in, sunk the boot in, and held it in place while I peeled left over it. And I heard like this loud clapping inside my ear. First bone that I broke, or second bone now, because now I know the clapping sound.
Yeah.
I've broken ribs before. I just didn't know what it was.
Yeah.
And also, there's nothing that you can do about broken ribs other than, like, so I got the healing treatment anyways. But yeah, I broke that thing. I didn't know what it was. And I was like, man, I could probably still walk on it. Let me try walking on it.
Yeah. Definitely not walking.
Yeah, definitely not walking. Still in disbelief. Got rolled into the hospital there in San Diego. Had a broken leg.
What part of the leg was broken?
My fibula on my right side.
Kidding. Wow.
Yeah, clean snap. And because my boots were so tight, like there's scar tissue, like a little scar tissue right where the bone snapped and pressed up against my skin. But because they were so tight, they weren't able to puncture. Like so lace your boots tight.
Yeah.
so they were laced. Yeah, no kidding. But so they were laced up good and tight and everything. So it wasn't compound fracture.
Yeah.
And it was it's just broken right across the again this hard-nosed idiot that I was it had to get put back in place.
Yeah.
A young ensign and his helper come in to do that. And they do the whole like resetting it and everything like that. And I got some choice words. I'm sweating. I'm angry. And after they're done, the ensign asked me, "When's your next whatever the pain management is? What painkiller? When's your next dose?" And I said, "I haven't gotten anything yet. Like, what are you talking about?" She's like, "Oh, So they reset my whole bone while I wasn't on painkiller, and so I think that might have been why the cast wasn't on all too well, because it started to cut off circulation. It turned purple, a lot of pain associated with that. Went back down, got it cut off, put it back in, and in that whole process of healing in that cast, I developed a deep vein thrombosis. I developed a blood clot in my leg, and it ruined a lot of my artery inside of my leg. And then it was also discovered, they ran a bunch of tests on me. It was discovered that I have a hereditary blood mutation that makes me more prone to having blood clots.
Yeah.
And it's actually a you can't serve if you have that. But the only way to find out is if you've had an incident, right? So it's not something that you just go looking for.
Yeah. So
this is my first unit. Again, like looking back on the whole thing, like I've left my country, become a citizen. I've abandoned my career in music, my profession and everything. I've abandoned my studies there. I've maintained these holding patterns. I've done so much. I put all the stuff on the table. I've gotten to my first unit. I've gone to dive school, dismissed everybody else and everything like that. I did get married to my wife, but now I come back with this medical information to my designated undersea medical officer, the primary physician at 1st Raider Battalion.
Yeah,
and he's got himself, lieutenant commander, major, and his captain on the side, or was lieutenant on the side, captain 4-hour ranks, and it's like, close the door, sit down. Like, okay, all right, we're about to have a conversation here.
Yeah,
and he tells me, yeah, you're not physically qualified for SOF. Like I got something to say about that. Like, are you serious? Like, you really, because I've got like years now worth of like proving that
that I can.
Yeah. So anyways, I leave that sit down conversation. That's a Friday. That Saturday, my wife is scheduled to arrive in San Diego, EASing out of the Navy with our daughter. And we're going to, because we've decided that, my career is going to be the one that we bank on.
Yeah.
Because it's kind of a calling thing. And, this guy's sitting down, the day before that I received him at the airport, I'm still in crutches, that I can't have a career. No, this is the whole thing that we're going to build this on. So I stopped by my operational psychologist's office on the way out. I've never seen him before, but I just stopped by there. I'm like, hey, look, Matt Shoemaker. I'm like, hey, look, sir, I know we haven't talked, but I need to establish a baseline with you, because if I start to deviate from that, I'm not going to be able to detect it. I casually say that, the guy that is losing his mind, is like painting his body with feces or whatever. Like he doesn't just wake up and like, oh wow, I'm crazy. Like that doesn't. It's not how that works. You need somebody to kind of like, look at, see. So I say, look, I need to start talking with you. We need to establish a baseline. And then I go down to the airport the next day and I receive my wife and I relay the information to her too. And so I immediately start fighting it. That fight takes 2 years until my wife and I locate to California, get into a house together, our first house together, like the uncertain conditions that I'm on limited duty indefinitely.
Yeah.
And I'm to be put on med board, and get cut short in this whole thing that's been put together that I'm putting together. And that was a time. That was
very trying time.
Yeah. And also like to try and put together this whole family thing under those circumstances. We did. There's no, this one thing that my wife and I, we agree on a lot of things, and I'm so blessed to have her in my life. That was definitely another like divine intervention thing.
Yeah.
But one thing that we agree on is that there's no good time to have kids. Like if you sit around, dude, if you sit around and wait for like perfect timing, it's not gonna come. Like it's only ever gonna be an inconvenient time. So like we had our second child there. We had our son, and then I got a waiver. I got the only waiver, because like we talked about before, you go and you look for paperwork that's been done before, right?
Yeah.
And then you kind of look like, hey, what's been approved before?
Yeah.
So I looked for the paperwork that, for my condition, like, hey, like what? No, there was none.
There wasn't any.
No, there wasn't any. Yeah. So I got the one waiver that exists with the Bureau of Medicine for a guy to continue on under my conditions.
Yeah.
And then finally in 2017, I get to start my MARSOC career.
Yeah.
So
Holy
like,
cow, man.
everything else like has been adjacent to or tangential on or like contingent on and leading up to, but until 2017, I finally get that letter back. It's like, all right, dude, deploy. Let's go.
Yeah.
So that's when it really finally starts.
I mean, that's a long road to get there,
dude.
Long road.
Be careful to pray for patience.
Yeah.
Because you'll get opportunities to work on it. And that's yeah. Yeah, so I got to work on a lot of patience there.
Yeah.
I think it's made me better suited for anything that comes in life, and this idea of like trusting the process, trusting that there is something there for me, that there is a purpose. I just have to be willing to lay down my life. Okay, yes. So we're back. So we're in 2017. I get the letter back. Okay, so I have to go on this tangent too, real quick, because it'd just be a sin if I didn't. While I was in a waiting pattern, I'm on limited duty, mind you, and I'm like covering down. I'm trying to show value, right, to my organization, because I don't want to get discarded. I don't want to lose their graces. And I get like some really good, well-penned letters of like endorsement, like, hey, this guy needs to stay from dudes that are like the heavy hitters within our organization, as far as I'm concerned, anyways. They're like they're awesome. They're real. They're the dudes. One of them is Michael Halterman, and the other is Doug Easley, who are both just one, lovely people, two, successful, great people. So I'm there, I'm demonstrating value, running current operations and training NCO and schools NCO IC and stuff like that for the first MSOB, then later Raider Battalion. And I get to be there for the ceremony where like the former Raiders, endorse it and all that stuff. Super cool events. And I guess plug for the Raider Foundation. It's really, really good organization, and also really, really good effort to rope in the former Raiders who are, very old now, and give them a sense of continuity. Like getting to see that young men are hard and willing to go through the rigors of special operations and do that like real forward work. Gives them like a another boost of confidence and sensibility to the things that they did back in the day. That largely has gone, unsung, right? Unsung heroes of the past, that sort of thing. So I got to see that. And, but also, of course, I keep in touch with some like friends that I made within the band field. And I have a conversation with some of my buddies, the Garcia brothers out in, still at 1st Marine Division Band. And they've got a guitarist out there, a guitar MLS player out there, and they're asking like, "Hey, dude, can you come out and like maybe give some lessons? Because she passed the course and everything, but she needs she could use it. I was, yeah, man, I'd love to help. I'm more or less wheelchair bound. I've got my leg in a cast, whatever. Like, yeah, I'd love to come out and help. And truth be told, like while I'm in a cast, a good friend, a loving member of our church out there in California, Pillar Church of Oceanside, Michael Young, he's one of the elders there. He says, dude, you can't be by yourself. I don't have a barracks room at the time. I don't have a barracks room. I don't have BAS. I don't have anything. I'm just living out of my truck. But I'm so busy going to like different schools and everything that it doesn't matter until I break my leg and I'm like living in a truck. And he's like, dude, you can't do that. You have to come stay with me and my family. I got to crash on his couch. Best time spent. He was a trumpet player in the U.S. Air Force.
Oh, okay.
And is still like, he's on the worship team at church, picks up guitar, because that's what you do on a worship team.
Mm-hmm.
And he finds out that I went to North Texas, and he's like, whoa, dude, we gotta play, Like, okay. And this is like in stark contrast to like the Ulrik that said, no, Talon, I've got other stuff to do. Mm-hmm. It's like, okay, yeah, okay, let's do that. So I play again, and I start playing guitars and stuff like that, and I just share it, put some YouTube videos or whatever up. And I start talking with the Garcia brothers. They tell me about this guitar player. I go out there to the band hall, and I'm in there, and I just mingle around a little bit. Like, there's this killing upright bass player, Eric Schulman, young cat, and it's great. And there's this guy who plays drums and sings and kind of knows the business. Like, hey, you guys, I should probably give an example of what right looks like. Could you guys kind of help me? We do a little trio setting, like what right looks like, and then we wind up we jam. Yeah, we just play, and then Chief Warrant Officer Wire at the time, she's the band officer, and she walks by and she hears it, and she's like, "Who are you? What are you doing here?" And all right, snap to. Like, hey, I'm Sergeant Merstrand at the time, and I am actually pending a submission for med board, fighting it, but I'm on limited duty and I can't perform my duties out at the Red Battalion. But I came from the band field, just kind of wrap up the whole story with her. She says, "Hey, look, we've got a tour going through Europe, and it would be really cool if you came and played guitar for us." So I says, I got to go back and ask my daddy, which is Zach Peters at the time, the operations chief for 1st Red Battalion. And it's not without trepidation that I go and ask this guy, who is a warrior legend within the community. And he is very much like that wild eye, like, we're here to slay, just very, very, very abrupt. He's the guy. He's the man. Okay. He's the real deal, he's one of those guys. And I'm like, oh man, I gotta go talk to CP about this. So I bonk on the door. I'm like, hey, CP. I make sure to like get him some stuff from like our Serve Mart runs and stuff like that beforehand. I got him a cool stamp that has his initials, ZP, just big stamp, because he has to stamp a lot of things for approval as the battalion chief, ops chief. So I get him a cool stamp and everything. It's dumb, man, but it's little things. I'm trying to
works,
brother. I'm trying to prepare the environment here. I'm trying to have like a non-conventional approach. So I go and I talk with them. I'm like, hey, they asked me if I can go and play in Europe. All expenses paid. Just got to go TAD with these guys. I'm like, yeah. And he's like, yeah, just so long as you wear your device, show them that we're out there. I'm like, okay, that's not what I expect. Cool. I'll go. That's great. Fantastic. So I go and I play a Europe tour with the 1st Marine Division Band on the 99th anniversary for the Belleau Wood fighting during World War I. And it's kind of like a preface for the 100-year anniversary, because they want to go, test it out, make sure that, proof of concept, essentially, right? And which essentially funds a free vacation for me to Europe. And I then extend and take leave, and I see my family while I'm there. And I ship my my wife and kids out there too, so they get to see family out there. It's just wonderful experience all the way around. That's in 2017. We come back from that trip, and I got this letter on my desk from BUMED, says, "Hey, waiver approved. Go back to work."
Nice.
Yeah. So that's what brings us up to that point. because we'd just been living in uncertainty up until then, which is a bad way, like that's I'm a lot more at ease with that because like a lot of elements to my life have been with uncertainty and then just a lot of faith and trust. But that was hard. Confluence of factors made it hard emotionally for my wife. The birth of our son was hard on her postpartum and stuff like that too. But then of course that uncertainty. So anyways, big sigh of relief. Come back. Hey, you're going to work. Immediately power hurl into the special operations work up to deployment, which I'm gone. Like I'm gone. Like,
right.
So I think that my wife reflects back on that time and like, over the course of 2 years, I was home for maybe like a month or two.
Wow.
Yeah. So I'm at schools up in Washington. I'm in schools in North Carolina. I'm in schools in Georgia. I'm in schools all over the place, and then I'm on deployment. And I make my deployment down to the southern Philippines in the autonomous region of Muslim Mindanao, where we live and stay for 6 months. Soft deployment, and I have a great time down there. That's where I learned that the jungles that we have here in North Carolina, they adequately prepared me for the jungles in Southeast Asia.
No kidding.
Nope. I promise you.
Very nice.
Yep. Because we went out there. I made it my personal mission to get outside the wire as much as possible.
Yeah.
There's no point to being there if you're not, and some of the guys see it differently because they're very much like it's got to be combat related. It's got to be, only the one thing that we're here to do. And I was like, yeah, no, we'll go on, do surveys, do whatever it is that anybody needs, because I have placement to a region, I will go and answer critical information requirements or just information requirements across the board. And we'll go out and by virtue of us being there and invited to functions and stuff like that, we went and did that. We were outside the wire every day. And by the wire, I mean the local host nation base that was set up as like the bastion there, that they launched all their operations into this martial law declared territory. And we were just out and about all the time. And that was fantastic. I loved it. But so I did actually spend time moving through the jungles there together with their indigenous forces as they were training them, just like surveying their training plan, surveying their jungle clearing operations and stuff like that.
Very cool.
Super fun. Flew around southern Philippines in UH-1s.
Wow.
United States decommissioned UH-1s that they had then just by cannibalizing various different frames, they made them still work, but they were very much so one motor, one prop,
Wow.
but we flew around with their commanding general, and so like reasonable to expect that we'd be all right. They did take fire, like there were bullet holes inside of our in our helicopters and stuff like that.
No kidding.
There were like armed gunners, so it was very much like once again, like my internal soundtrack was back to that Vietnam era stuff. Because there's it's exactly what it was. Monkeys down in these freaking jungles too, like actual monkeys. So that was fun. Had a blast of a time, and very much learned an appreciation for how much of a create your own adventure the soft deployment is. As opposed to like kind of a rigid, like getting told what top down told what it is that you need to do, which very much aligned with how I've lived my life. Very, very much like, hey, I'm going to find out what's going on or at least try to find out what's going on and then just plug in.
Take advantage of anything you can.
Yeah, absolutely. Big time. So that was a blast. I learned a lot. I learned a lot of the inner workings of what goes on, genuinely what goes on within, a non-conventional approach to deployments. And then I came back from that, and MARSOC in the time that I was getting recruited over to come work for MARSOC had pitched this idea that you would be regionally aligned. And so with that, there's only two MARSOC commands. There's West Coast Command and an East Coast Command. And if you were aligned to our mission set in the Pacific, you would be, for the duration of your career, you would be in California. Which is counter to the Marine Corps experience, which, uproots you. Exactly. Uproots you every 3 years and puts you in a different place. The needs of the Marine Corps, right? So we were led under those pretenses to California, and a lot of my peers, I didn't, but a lot of my peers bought property there in California and kind of like set roots there. I didn't because I had that looming, you don't know if you're going to be in or not. And then once I got the, hey, you're in, like I was gone. Like that, there's just no time for anything. And I thank God for the church community that we had there, that my wife had meaningful people to plug in with, like really spend significant time with. Because as much as I love the efforts around the military community, a lot of it is drinking buddies and stuff like that.
Yeah.
And we're just very much aligned with our church, aligned with those family values, and having kids, having and raising kids. So we hadn't plugged. I didn't have firm roots there, and Marsoc from command down said, "Hey, look, we're going to consolidate forces on the East Coast," and I saw the writing on the wall. And we wanted to have more kids. Said, look, I'm just going to go ahead and take a instructor position if that's cool with my command and everything else. I know that everybody's going to be moving over to the East Coast anyways, so might as well get ahead of that. And I volunteered to go work at the schoolhouse as an instructor there.
Okay.
So I came over to the schoolhouse in 2019. Perfect year we PCS'd. I took full 30 days plus, and we bought a trailer. We bought an Airstream. Lugged it behind the truck, and just had a blast boondocking across America. It was wonderful. It was definitely a defining experience in my life. My wife was pregnant with our third child during that move, but handled it like a champ. It was the first time that my wife had made that drive. I've made that drive across America several times, and it's inspiring, right? It's inspiring. You're traveling around on the road, but it's just so inspiring to see how vast this nation is, how unfathomably huge this country is, and how much wilderness and just craziness is out there.
Yeah, that's very true.
And then again, like, my romantic mind goes back to like the early settlers and the guys that were exploring this stuff like for the first time. And like, I can scarcely imagine the amount of guts and courage that these people had and armed themselves with going into that uncertainty. First, taking the step, and second, having the follow through to continue when they saw what you saw and what I saw driving across America, going 80 miles an hour, down the freeway. They were going with a convoy, a caravan, right? Like I don't know. First encounter with a rattlesnake known to man. You know what I mean? That's crazy. That's crazy. Being able to share that romantic feeling with my family, and we stopped here. We stopped at the Hoover Dam. We stopped at Zion, at Arches. We stopped at various different fossil spots. We went through Nebraska. We stopped at the Pony Express. We went all over the place. It was wonderful. It was just a great time. We stopped and we visited with my in-laws in Chicago. Stayed there for a spell, and went, visited museums there and everything. Visited family. Had a great time with that, and then just plugged in and surveyed this great country that we know, love, and defend. It's just a wonderful thing to share as a family. And again, in 2019, before the world fell apart, right? We bought a house in North Carolina.
Okay.
And it was fantastic. Like, it all just worked out. My wife really likes to go to bookstores. That's her kind of cathartic thing. And so she goes to Barnes and Noble, and we drove that Airstream out to Sneads Ferry, parked it there in a trailer park there, because I knew it would kind of be equidistant in between Jacksonville and Wilmington, and I knew I was going to be working out of Sneads Ferry. And so I kind of sent her out as the canary in the coal mine. And she went to the bookstore in Jacksonville. She went to the bookstore down in Wilmington, and she comes back and she's like, in the one in Jacksonville, I came back and I went to the bookstore there, and I only saw one person that didn't have high and tide there. And then she comes back from the one in Wilmington. She's like, you know what, honey? I only saw one person with a high and tide there. I'm like, all right, sweetheart, where do you want to go look for houses? So we went looking for houses down in Wilmington. We found a good spot there. Plugged in. We knew the value of plugging into a church community in immediate proximity. It's a community thing, right? So we found we just started scouting for doctrinally sound places, places that we could plug into. And found a couple places, surveyed them, did that with the kids too. I'm so grateful that they get an opportunity to see that there are several places where the word of God is preached. It's not just like, because otherwise it can become daunting. Like when they become, older and start to have to look for this for themselves. So we went to several different churches, settled on one, Covenant Church down on 210 Station Road. And we've been there ever since. And it's literally 5 minutes away from my house.
Oh, wow.
And just a lovely church community there. And we're plugged in. We're with the worship team there now. Like my wife and I were both both military musicians, her in the Navy, I in the Marine Corps. And we're plugged in with the worship there, plugged in with like various men's groups, study groups, stuff like that. And it's been a really, really good experience. Not to mention coming over to the schoolhouse was a wonderful experience for me. I was gainfully employed throughout the pandemic. But being able to interface with young dudes that want in, and not from like the cadre of like scripted answers only, but being able to engage meaningfully, like really challenged me in personal growth and kind of reflect and introspect on like what has value, why does this have value,
right?
Why are we doing what we're doing? Kind of big questions in that regard, because we were, at that time we're looking at a drawdown in Afghanistan. We're looking at reprioritization. We won the fight against ISIS. As soon as Trump let us loose on those guys, we squashed them right away. For me, it was important to kind of come back to like what are the overarching ethos that guide us, and it's the Constitution. Like it's the values. It's the things that we commonly believe in as an American. Things that we believe to be true. So that was great. That was just a wonderful experience. I got to work a lot on my interpersonal communication skills and everything like that. Honestly, that started with my deployment to the Philippines. I got a lot of training on that. And a lot of, just real life experience on that. And I got to flesh myself out. And of course, being a family man, being a husband, being a father, being on a team, and then being a mentor to not like fresh out of boot camp Marines, but Marines that have at least one tour. So a little bit more mature, but still a young audience, so they're a bit more challenging. Like their critical thinking skills are there, but getting to be in a mentor role there and to serve those guys and to serve the organization and to like really reflect on what does it mean to serve an organization. It was just one great experience all around, and got to work with, some of the best people in my life. Again, like that's kind of I hear that a lot in speaking with service members and everything. Like it's the brother to your left and your right. And it's just such a true statement.
Oh yeah.
The guys that you wind up working with, the organization is FUBAR, right?
The
organization sucks. But the guys that you work with rock. And that's really true. That's where I met Adam again. That was like, hey, you don't remember me, do you? And but I got to leave the schoolhouse and go and check in with the 2nd Raider Battalion, which I had my trepidations about too, because 2nd Raider Battalion has always been known to be like a very hard-nosed, by the book kind of, like very Marine Corps, very Camp Lejeune, where I was a very Camp Pendleton Marine, through and through. And the difference.
And there is definitely a difference.
A huge cultural difference, right? Like we would, we would surf, like we would see the surf in the morning. We'd go out, we'd hit the beach. Like I mentioned, tanning ops at the pool so often and everything. Like it's a huge cultural difference between Camp Pendleton, California, and Camp Lejeune, North Carolina. And so I kind of had, my worries and everything. I go and check in with my designated company, and I find guys that I went to ITC with were chill as all get. I find guys that I served with out in Camp Pendleton. And I just like, oh man, this is a warm welcome. Like it's almost this feeling of returning back, like to your family. And I had a great time with those guys. It was just such a warm, very, very, very mission focused, very driven organization. It wasn't all like gushy and feeling or anything like that, but it was just a warm fraternal bond and brotherhood that was mission oriented and mission focused.
And
I was, man, I have nothing but positive experience from working at the Second Rare Battalion India Company specifically, and we went to Iraq together, and kind of saw like where that is in the state of affairs. Iraq in 2000 and when was I there? 23. Yeah, was I was there with guys that were there in like the 2000s, and from there, like wide-eyed. I spent as much time as possible outside of base, out and about, and I would routinely like take people out with me and stuff. And they were like, "Wow, this is mind blowing! Like how much this place has changed." And I spent most of my time in Erbil, and Erbil is kind of like a little Vegas sort of thing.
Oh, really?
Yeah. It's like the place that people go to. It's very built up. It's near a big coalition base, so it kind of checks out. There's a lot of money there, a lot of government contracts, stuff like that goes on. But we got to do meaningful work out there, which was very important for me. But I also realized that the same Marine Corps and the same, honestly, United States Department of Defense that I had entered into in 2010, when we were hot and heavy in GWAT, hot and heavy in Afghanistan and Iraq, that I joined for war, just wasn't the Marine Corps that I was serving in. And honestly, just isn't the U.S. Special Operations Command that I was serving in. It wasn't that. And as you may or may not be able to imagine, I, since getting my waiver, never went to see medical again. Because the last thing I wanted to do was kind of, shoot myself. But I kept up with my medical routines, my regimen, but everything else was kind of change your socks, face outboard, take a Motrin if you need be. But I didn't want to, unless I was getting dragged into the hospital. I didn't want to address anything because if I can power through it, I can power through it. So I kind of reevaluated that while I was out in Iraq because it hurts. My leg never stopped. It never has stopped. And since getting my leg injury, I've never had migraines before. I started getting migraines. I started getting ocular migraines, which is where, you start to get, dude, the first time that happened, man, I lost my mind. You start, it's like you're looking through a kaleidoscope. That's essentially it. Like you start to get like a blur in your vision. And then it just starts to like refract all your vision. And I didn't know what the heck was happening, like did I get a blurry or whatever, and it definitely helps to put a name to it and like find out what the condition is. And like, okay, I'm not, I'm
not crazy.
Yeah, dude. But I started getting those. And I remember, dude, there's one time I'm going through our sniper school, and I'm on a mountaintop and we're locating targets. And I can't see, man. Like,
oh, wow.
I'm right eye dominant. I got my right eye in the scope. Like, there's no way about it. My target is near a mile away. Like, I'm on 25 power magnification through this ATACR, and I'm trying to look through a kaleidoscope, dude, to try and find this thing. I cannot find it. It's embarrassing. It's a terrible time, and that's like one like. I never got deployed forward as a sniper, and I'm glad that I never did, because I think that if I got that call to do that, I would have to be like, dude, I can't in good conscience do this, because I know from that training evolution there on top of the mountain, looking down and spotting out targets, that should that happen to me, like during like a real scenario, man, I can't be there for you, dude. Like, I can't do it. So thankfully I never did, forward deploy as a sniper or anything like that. But like little things had kind of like,
started surfacing.
Yeah. And I was able to kind of skirt it because within, as you can imagine, within like the unconventional approach to soft, like there's many different things you can do. It's not very little of it is time behind a trigger, and increasingly so these days, right?
Yeah.
So nonetheless, I'm at the end of my deployment in Iraq. We get some good work done. I'm thinking to myself, you know what? This isn't what drove me in 2010. And God, family and we want to have more kids. And I love my wife. I love my kids. I want to be there for them. So I bite the bullet and I go and I check in with my independent, what is it? SOIDC, Special Operations Independent Duty Corpsman. And I check in with him, say, hey, Roy, whenever we get back, I think you can schedule me to go in for, just get a routine checkup on this leg. It's not doing well and it's kind of bothering me, but yeah, we can do that. A son of a gun. Next day, still in Iraq. Next day, I've got to check in with the doc there, and I'm not happy about it. Like I kind of feel like, hey, dude, like we were supposed to be tight about this, but I also know like that's not his job.
Yeah.
His job isn't to like unnecessarily string along something that could be a condition. His job is to do exactly what he did. God bless him. I thank him for it. We go in, we find something like right away. Like on these, they got crap for ultrasound scanners in there.
Yeah.
Because they don't have to have that. They're there for a position. If you need real medical attention, we send you back. And they find something, but they can't say conclusively what it is they're finding.
Yeah.
Shoot. Now I get clear to get on the airplane, et cetera, et cetera. I get clear to get on the airplane. I fly back. I go in. Now like my first appointed place of duty is, after we receive all our gear, go in, get my ultrasound at the hospital. And they find new clots and new destruction all throughout the veins. They compare it to like previous ultrasounds that they've done on my legs.
Yeah.
Like, yeah, man, this is you're not leaving. You're going to the ER right now.
Oh wow.
Yeah. I'm like, oh, well, no. I came in on a Saturday because that's when they could see me. I was like, you know what? I'll play ball. I'll go as fast as possible. It'll probably be fine. I'm still expecting to hear change your socks, face out there, it's fine. It's not. And I'm like, man, I'm not gonna hang out here. It's Saturday. I just came back from deployment. I'm gonna spend it with my family. All right. I'll come back in Monday. I'll talk to my UMO about it then. She hits me up. She's like, not impressed. And we have a conversation about it on Monday. I'm immediately back on blood thinning medication. So now I'm effectively a bleeder. Right?
Yeah.
So needless to say, you can't do, even though shooting the gun is diminishingly small part of the job.
Yeah.
It is still something that you have to be able to do. I can't forward deploy. No commander in their right mind is going to say, yeah, this guy, yeah, he can deploy. He'll just play play the game on hard mode,
Yeah.
and it'll be fine. So, yeah, because of that, I can't be in the gun club anymore.
Yeah.
And so that's like another, I mean, I can't be honest and say that I didn't see the writing on the wall. Like that eventually, like I even have a tattoo of like one of the bombs from Super Mario, the wind up bomb, because it's my ticking time bomb.
Yeah. That's good.
So I knew, well, that's what we do. We have to kind of laugh at tragedy, right?
Yeah.
That's as a service member organization, that's kind of what we have to do. But yeah, so I kind of knew that it was my time bomb. That's what they had named it to when I was initially getting put up for med board. So I knew that was on the horizon. I just didn't know when, and I was genuinely hoping that it was now. But so it is. Like it's better to have diagnosed in person than in autopsy, right?
True.
So here we are. Now I'm in my transition trajectory. Initially, I stayed at 2nd Raider Battalion, but I kept volunteering to go and do stuff. and then the battalion surgeon would have an aneurysm and be like, no, you can't. You can't stop it. You can't do that. But and it wasn't just facetiously, of course. Like we genuinely need, like we're short staffed. We don't have enough operators to do everything that it is we're covering down on. 2nd Raider Battalion is covering down on a lot of stuff, not just in the Middle East, but like all over the place. And it became like conversations about like, hey, dude, this guy is literally retiring while on this deployment. So he would have to extend, it's like, why that? Why not? Here I am. Send me, like, why not me? Like, I can do this, right? And they had to come back significantly twice, and say like, no, you can't deploy Merstrand. Get another name. And with that attitude too, it's like, so at the end of it, like the ops chief for 2nd Battalion was like, look, I can't have you keep dropping your name in the hat for this. I'm going to put you on like the outer concentric rings of operational relevancy. So I'm at the G7 now, and taking care of my business, my paperwork. I've got my first slew of VA appointments lined up for this month, starting on Monday. And like I mentioned to you, and I think we talked about it a little bit, but I'm to find meaning and value. Like I am volunteering my time for music therapy.
Yeah,
because I went to the Intrepid Spirit Traumatic Brain Injury Clinic. It's a great facility that we have available here on Camel June, and they go through like a multidiscipline approach to therapies. So it's like audio, visual, all kinds of stimulation to kind of help rewire your brain or drown out PTSD, TBI, whatever it is that's ailing you, chronic headaches, all this stuff, right?
Right.
To including like massage therapy, what's the needling or whatever, anything that you can think of. One of the therapy sessions is creative writing. Creative writing therapy session is hosted by Worth Parker. Worth Parker is a published author who also was one of the original dudes in MARSOC.
Oh, wow.
So he has, exactly. Oh, wow. He has Raider credentials, right? He's got warrior credentials. So when you sit down with a guy like that and he's leading the class, I'm like, hey, let's explore creative writing as a therapy option. You aren't immediately like, okay, like let's hear out this, left-leaning, liberal, blue-haired, whatever it is, right? Because that's immediately what goes through the mind of our martial culture, warrior ethos.
Right.
It's like we don't want to hear it, and that's generally true, for better or for worse. And that's not to say that the therapy option isn't a good option. That's to say that we have defense mechanisms that say, outsider, stranger danger, we don't care what you have to say. I know what's true. You don't know. Get out of my face.
Yeah.
And so Worth then volunteers his time to come in and say, hey, look, here's my credentials. I've been there. I've done that. I walk through your shoes. Also, here's my credentials. I'm out there and I'm published and I'm doing this nonprofit and making money off it too. So you can listen to what I have to say or not listen to what I have to say. It doesn't really matter to me. So let's go ahead. Let's do some writing. Here, I'm going to read you something that I wrote. And then you're off to the races. Then you're just in it with it. Like he's immediately brought down the guard.
Yeah.
And now made this therapy option accessible to all of the audience there. Right.
Yeah.
And so I went there as a patient. And I go into the music therapy. Again, no hit on him as a person, but he is a liberal arts degree holder with all that entails, right? He is decidedly not a Marine, not a warrior, not a guy that we would say, you and me, same.
Yeah.
A guy that, and I had this conversation with him in his office. That's why I feel comfortable sharing it. It's like, I said, hey, look, like I know exactly what you're up against because I see it. And I know it, I can observe it internally too, because I have self-awareness, because thank God, like my peer evaluations and on taught me to have self-awareness. I would like very much to help your class and help your therapy. You're the board certified therapist. I would like very much to come in. I've got, my credentials from UNT. I've traveled around. I play music. I play my church. I see the value that it brings and everything. And I'd like very much to volunteer my time to kind of help bring that barrier to entry down.
Yeah.
And validate the therapy as an option. And so I just finished my first class doing that. My first 5-week class of doing that. And I'll be doing it again one more time before the year ends. And then I've scheduled all my medical appointments around the days that I go in and do that. So I can still legitimately go in and do that without taking time away. So I'm still, like making sure that I'm like, you're spinning the plates, balancing all the things. So I'm still doing all these things, but I'm trying to set up and like explore the path, the launch path for like going out and doing the music thing, which also, at least in my evaluation, has to be validated by, I'm also doing music, not just as a therapy option, but as a profession. Right? I'm doing this as well. This is how I'm doing it. This is like, because it adds credential and validity to it. Right. I was more apt to believe Worth Parker because he can come in with the credential of saying I'm a published author, regardless of where he published, regardless of who reads his articles. That doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. Like he can come in and say that with authority. Cool. Yeah. All right, rock and roll. Let's hear what you got to say. And it's it's completely bogus that we have that barrier, you know, because it serves its purpose in a lot of different venues. But when it comes to like exploring therapy options, I say this to my class too, is like it's not necessarily that you're going to be the beneficiary of it. You know, like you might know about music therapy and never use it, but you might come across a guy that like really could use this and really could use this as a therapy option. So now you have reference material.
Yeah.
And now you have a place to go for reference material that isn't necessarily going to turn that service member off, because it can be kind of hard to say, hey, young junior Marine that I know is troubled, that also kind of flirts with this music thing, go and see this liberal arts degree holder.
Yeah.
It could be a lot easier to say, hey, go see retired Gunner Sergeant Merstrand, who's a Raider, by the way, and, you know, deployed with me back then. You know, like that's a lot easier to say.
It's an easier sell for sure.
Yes, absolutely. And not to say that that's more valid, because it does nothing for the music therapy as an option, nothing at all, but it just lowers the barrier to entry.
Yeah, which is important. And you look across the military, all the way across every MOS, every branch, it doesn't matter. It's that barrier that you have to get past. You know, that's why veterans have a easier time talking to other veterans versus talking about anything with a therapist, or, you know, it doesn't matter. But if it is somebody that we can relate to, okay, I can let my guard down and I can actually have a conversation.
Yeah. Case in point, right? Yeah. Case in point. Exactly that.
Man, that's awesome. So at this point, you're looking and moving in that direction. You're playing your music, doing all that type of stuff, and you're just getting ready to enjoy the retired life.
Yeah, well, it's going to be an early retirement, so I'm going to be putting in for my 15 years, and we'll see. You know, nothing's over until the fat lady sings, so we'll see what it looks like money wise. But I'll say I went through the Honor Foundation, the nonprofit organization, to help transitioning soft, and the most common trajectory is into corporate America, right? You know, you go from uniform to suit. You go and you do aggressive sales for an organization, or you do team building, team management. You do organizational, you know, like all the things that we know, brute force repetition from the military, and we just apply it to civilian life. And that track record is tried and true, and that's 100% what I expected, right? Because that's like 80 to 90% of the soft dudes that go through there. That's what they're off to do, you know, working great, you know, 6-figure jobs in corporate America. And I was like, yep, cool. I'll do that, and then I'll just do something on the side. I'll fund my family on the side, you know, like that's going to be great. Not my family on the side, but I'll live on the side of that, you know, because I'm already accustomed to this idea of like nose to the grindstone. My time belongs elsewhere. You know, I'm an indentured servant, right? So it kind of floored me. We have story night, and like I said earlier, like I got the gift of gab, and I've been given opportunities to hone that as a craft, and it's really helped flesh me out as a human being. Made me more personable and approachable, not just to colleagues and international relations, but also to my wife and my family. But so we have story night for guys that have a hard time talking about themselves. So I decide, well, I can talk about myself. I've got plenty of repetitions. Anybody that knows me knows that. So I wanted to talk about talent. My buddy that came up to me and didn't, you know, and wanted to play, and I just kind of, you know, brushed it off. Wanted to talk about that because, you know, it prompted me to think about, well, what do we do, and what is our antidote to survivor's guilt, right? Like, how do we go about living in a meaningful manner that honors their legacy? You know, which is kind of a weird, like, you know, it's an indirect approach, right? Because he's my brother. Fraternally, you know, like he's my brother in this regard. But I don't know his wife. I don't know his mom and dad, you know, like, so it's kind of like a little bit obscure too. So anyways, I just spent some time musing on that. I spent some time of my story night talking about that. And then my conclusion was like, I'm going to put my money where my mouth is. So the second part of my story night, I pull out, and this was, again, like a confluence of factors came together. I bought an amplifier and received it in the mail like the morning before. I had played with the 2nd Marine Division Band and their Christmas series concerts, which again, that was Mark Payon. He put that together. Amazing production, and just a amazing opportunity for me to play music in an amazing setting, and hear my children in the audience
Nice.
cheering and go, "Yay, Dad."
Yeah.
Mountaintop moment, dude.
Oh yeah, yeah.
I've never been able to do anything in my job and have my family around. Then they say, "Yay, Dad." Like ever. I take my kids into the compound every now and again. We got go running around on the fuselages and stuff like that. Like have a good time. I take them through the O course, but never have I done like dolled up in Marine Corps uniform and everything like that. Mark like points me out. It's like, "Hey, Gunnery Sergeant Merstrand," so on and so forth. Everybody claps and applauds, this, that, and the other, and I get to play guitar solo, and they're, "Hey," cheering on me. Dude, that was huge. Star in my eyes, very authentic. Okay, but with that in mind, like I didn't have a guitar at the time. I meet a dude that like was like, "Hey man, if you ever need anything like this, I heard your story and this and the other," and essentially I get a guitar for free. Okay. So I have this guitar, right? It's leading up to story night. I have this guitar. I got this amp so I can play it. I'm like, I'm gonna put my money where my mouth is. Pull out this guitar, and I'm gonna dedicate this song by Jimi Hendrix, "The Wind Cries Mary," to my buddy Talon. And I play a song dedicated to my buddy Talon, and I get it out of my system. Like I get it out. It's cathartic for me. I bleed it. I put my money where my mouth is. I talk about the legacy thing and living a full life and going through these doors that they can't go through. Those doors are forever shut. Right, our doors are still open, and I put it back in its case, and I'm like, "All right, I did it. We're done. Rest easy, my friend." And all right. Now, within this honor foundation, right, what they do is they help the transition process, and so immediately the wheels start turning, and they're like, "Yeah, hit me up. I know this guy. He's working for he's getting out of the Marine Corps. He's going to go work for Mojo Tone, which is like a boutique amp maker up in Berghoff. Never heard about it before, by the way. Yeah. Like, let me link you up with him. Like, okay, yeah, I'd love to talk with him. Next call. I know this guy. He works for Zach Brown. He puts together like a camp for veterans to come together and do singer songwriter camp in Georgia. Do you want to let me have you talk with him? Okay. And then they bounced me over to like Operation Song. They linked me up with the singer songwriter out in Nashville, Mark Irwin, who I'm talking with still. And I go open kimono with him. I'm like, "Dude, I already play music and I really want to write. Could you be like my songwriter mentor?" And he's open. He's like, "Yeah, man. Like, I'll be your songwriter mentor." So I've got literally like a hit maker out of Nashville that's now paired up with me. I've got a tentative spot to go and participate in Zach Brown's, which, by the way, the guys that come to that camp, like just on like the alumni, the dude that wrote Three Wooden Crosses for Randy Travis, like guys that are writing hits for Taylor Swift, whatever, like those kinds of guys, like hit makers out of Tennessee, are the guys that come down and like mentor that camp. Wow. And I'm like, what have I done? Like, what the heck has opened up? So I'm like, okay. I reach out to, I don't know. I just kind of had this conversation casually. I'm still over at Second the Time. And at this time when I'm having this conversation casually, and this guy's like, "Yeah, I know a guy that owns the bar Leaf and Barrel down off 17. And I've been talking with him. My friend that's talking to me, he says he's been talking with him about working for FedEx and picking up, operations and management. But why don't you go talk with him? It's like, yeah. I go down and talk with him. He's like, "Yeah, man, you're hired. Come down and play." And I said, like, okay, well, I have to dedicate. There was a young Marine recon kid that lost his life in a parachuting accident. Corporal Arslan Bas. That's what it is, Arslan Bas. And I'll be honest, I didn't have the guts or courage to go to his funeral, so I sat in a parking lot outside. I don't know. Yeah, I wanted to, but yeah. But I had an opportunity to go play a show, dedicate that show to him, raise funds. I got it matched by the owner, donated it all to the Recon Foundation, told him that. And then I started picking up gigs down in Wellington. Like then it just like started snowballing. Yeah. And it's not like I'm going on a world tour next or anything like that. It's not it's not out of hand yet. But like little things are starting to like transpire where I'm like, okay, guess I'm just gonna follow this,
Yeah.
because
see where it goes.
Yeah, because even if all it amounts to is give me enough enough experience to generate buy-in from somebody that I deliver music therapy to engage fully and meaningfully, then I think that's worth a while.
Yeah.
And that and the other thing too is my wife's on board. Like that's just crazy.
Yeah.
Because like it's gone from like this, like I don't care, honey. I'm gonna make money and we're gonna be so much better off. Promise you that. To like, I don't know what I'm gonna make. I don't know where the money's gonna come from or how we're gonna be doing.
Yeah.
But I think this is a calling on my heart.
Yeah, absolutely.
That I have kind of stiff armed in the past.
Mhm.
And I think it's coming, like you're saying earlier, full circle.
Yeah.
Like that whole full circle thing of like, I get to not only tell my own story, but I get to tell the story of my brothers from like a genuine secondhand account. Of like, I was there. And not to throw any shade on the country musicians out of Nashville that are doing that, but it's kind of like with that Billy Joel song "Goodbye Saigon." Like he was never there, but he did pull some meaningful stuff from dudes.
Oh yeah,
and voice it in an impactful manner. I would like to. I personally would like to hear a guy that's like, yeah, man, the guy was there.
Yeah.
Oh, what was his name? Was it Fredrickson? What the heck was his name? Oh, shoot, we just lost. There was a great singer songwriter out of Nashville that passed away last week, and but he was a helicopter pilot in Vietnam and a captain in the Army, and he ditched that to go out and become a singer songwriter.
Okay,
and it was like very prolific singer songwriter. I'm gonna hate myself, but so it is. You can't remember everything. TBI.
It happens. What are you gonna do?
Too many bonks on the noggin.
Oh shoot.
Chris Christopherson.
That's it.
That's it.
Chris Christopherson.
Yes. I saw visual memory. I saw like the picture inside my mind of his of the social media post that I'd seen.
Yeah.
That was Chris Christopherson.
Yeah, Chris Christopherson.
Yeah. And that tons of people don't even know that he served. Shoot, Jimi Hendrix served, jumped out of airplanes. That's something that we have in common, But I don't know. It's just so much more genuine and authentic whenever a guy like that speaks about it, Like when they have something to say.
Yeah, I agree.
I don't have, well, I got tons of delusions of grandeur, but I'm not beholden to him so much that I can't also be a real human being. But I really, like, a lot of wonderful people have given me one opportunity to go play at their venues. So I get to go play at like the premier spot for the blues in Wilmington, North Carolina, which isn't very nice. It is what it is, right? But Sandy down there that owns the venue, the Rusty Nail, was like, yeah, man, loved it. Come on down and play again. And so she's invited me down to play again. And I get to do like dinner gigs at this really nice upscale restaurant at Cornelia's, which is it's a really nice upscale restaurant. It's called Cornelia's from Cornelia. What the heck was her? I forget the family name. Oh, Davis, Cornelia Davis, in the Davis community, which is just a really, really nice spot. Do like dinner, cocktail, jazz, stuff like that.
Nice.
And then get in with like the local music community there in Wellington, which is, it's bustling right now. It's really alive and vibrant. And then also like reaching back out to a lot of friendships that I left behind from UNT, and to find them warm, to find that they're still like really warm and loving, genuine people that are like, yeah, man, like I would love to see you again. If you put something together, I'll host you. If you need a musician to play with you, I'll play with you. Like all this, like, oh wow, this is amazing. This is really, really cool. So there's like a lot of untapped potential there that I'm just now like starting to tap into as I'm reinventing what the heck am I supposed to be doing with myself. And trying to take like a non-conventional approach once again, right?
Yeah, full circle.
Yeah.
Well, as we get ready to wrap up, is there anything that you would want to leave everybody with? Words of wisdom or anything like that as we get ready to end this up?
I don't know. I think my personal testimony would be something to the effect of God opens doors all around us, and we don't know until we go. That would really be it. And that's kind of, that's like vague and indefinite and kind of cheesy, but it's so true. And I as I'm exploring this music route and exploring songwriting and poetry and everything else too, I'm kind of I've rekindled this belief that it's okay to be romantic. It's okay to be in love. You know, it's okay to love things that are around us. This kind of this vision of post-apocalyptic cynicism that's kind of everywhere. I don't know there has to be an antidote to that, and I think that we, as service members, are purveyors of hope. We believe that there are things in life that are so worthy that we'd be willing to lay down our lives for them. And I think that that's a romantic idea.
Yeah.
That's really that's a dreamer's idea, and it's just reinforced with grit and violence and blood. And I think that that's poetic too. So, but I think the dreamers message, and then check in with your buddies. You know, like we're simultaneously so connected and so distant from one another that that it can be easy to take for granted that this guy's plugged in just because they have a presence online or otherwise, or because you text them and whatnot. But this right here, like actually being able to reach out and touch somebody, like nothing. There's no substitute for it. And it doesn't have to be anything formal or anything grandiose or anything like that. It can be two friends having a cup of coffee and sharing a conversation. So I really appreciate what you do, Andrew. I really like that as an idea and concept. Thanks so much.
Yeah, thanks for sharing your story.
Thank you.
Very unique story, and a story that overcoming adversity, being able to push through, and having a great attitude as you're doing it. So I appreciate it, man.
Thanks, brother.
Cool. To all the listeners out there, if you're struggling, need help, be sure reach out. The VA does have some great resources. You can dial 988, press option 1. You can also text 838-255, or you can go to veteranscrisisline.net, click on the chat icon. Any of those options will put you in contact with somebody that can help you out. But remember, one veteran life loss is one too many. I care about you. This guy cares about you. The whole veteran community cares about you. So please reach out for help. And if you're out there, you're not struggling, just like he was saying, reach out to your buddies, ask them how they're doing. And if they need help, please give them a helping hand. All right. One last time. Thanks. Appreciate it, man.
Thanks again, brother.
To all the listeners, stay motivated, change your socks.